Giada, please go ahead.
Yeah, so let me share my screen. Check if it works. Sam, could you release this?
Yes.
Yes.
I succeed.
Thanks. Can you see my screen now?
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So I will skip briefly this part, basically who we are. I'm coming from Nextworks. We are an SME in Italy, and we are very active in the 5G area, also with several participation in European projects, where we basically had the opportunity to work very closely with vertical industries that are the ones more interested in this concept of the NetApps, because they are actually a key enabler to develop new services, vertical services in several areas. Here I've just mentioned something, automotive, for example, media, manufacturing, industry 4.0, and so on. There are opportunities basically to exploit these new capabilities of the 5G networks to develop applications that are somehow network aware and network enabled. Just some lessons learned from this huge experience with vertical. So first of all, we need to know that there are variety of requirements from their side. So what is true for a given vertical, well, this is completely different for another ones. Also the target KPIs varying a lot, and at the same time also the deployment models related to the 5G network, but also to the NetApp itself. So for example, we could have NetApps that somehow needs to be deployed entirely at the edge of the network. Others have functionalities that should run at the edge, but in a more distributed manner, and somehow also at the core. And then we have also the most challenging one that are more oriented to the 6G, let's say, where some of the functions should be also deployed directly on the user equipment, or more in general on the extreme edge. The other point is that there is a strong gap between the perception of the verticals that more or less have a service-oriented know-how and the complexity of the 5G network. And in most of the cases, they are not really interested in how the 5G network is composed. They just want to use that. They want some performance from that. And in some cases, they are also interested to reuse some of the services that the network would expose. For example, the localization services, the network data analytics services that somehow can also be used to trigger some reconfigurations at the application level and so on. So in this sense, there is a huge possibility also for SMEs to help these verticals to re-engineer somehow their current services, to move towards network-aware, network-enabled applications to somehow really exploit these 5G networks. At the same time, in order to fully enable this process, it's also important to understand that the interaction with the network should be as much as automated and as much simple as possible. In the sense that, of course, the application needs to interact with the network, but somehow needs to completely wrap its complexity. And at the same time, there are also other opportunities, for example, in terms of security, of edge computing, of AI. If we manage to bring everything together, for example, through some SDK or toolkit that allows to easily implement the NetApps on top of the functionalities that the network already offers, well, this will be, of course, a plus. Just some overview of the opportunities that this NetApp market could bring for SMEs like us. We are basically a technology provider. Well, of course, the consultancy and the system integration. For example, we could think about standalone on public networks for Industry 4.0, Smart Campus, whatever. And together with them, we could offer also specialized NetApps that are particularly developed for that kind of target. At the same time, it's also important to see that the NetApps are actually need to interwork with what is already existing in the vertical infrastructure. So for example, in terms of edge computing resources, the existing IoT platforms. In Industry 4.0, for example, we have also the TSN networks and so on. So the interoperability in this case is quite fundamental. Also, other opportunities, of course, as consultancy and third-party software developer. In this case, it's really important to be a partner for this vertical. So start from the design up to the implementation and testing phase, for example, for the re-engineering and the customization of their services following a NetApp-based approach. In this sense, it's also interesting to see all this output right from the ICT 41 project, because they are already providing a huge portfolio of NetApps. In most of the cases, they are also open source NetApps that somehow can be reused and combined also to build new services. The key drivers in this sense, of course, is the virtualization and the cloud native platforms, the decomposition between edge and cloud, and again, going towards 6G, also towards the extreme edge, the integration somehow with the 5G services, but also the MEC applications for UE localization, the RNIS, the analytics, whatever in sense is quite useful. And then, of course, the customization of the network slices for the QS guarantees, the security, the isolation. And this gives also the opportunity, I would say, at least for us, that we have also our own product. For example, in the smart yachting and in the smart building and smart factory sector, to evolve somehow our product portfolio to make our product really 5G ready. In this sense, I've just mentioned it here, a couple of actions within the ICT 41 project where we are involved, in particular in Vital 5G and in 5G YANA. In the first case, for example, we are proposing a NetApp modeling that somehow try to abstract the network complexity, the 5G network complexity, to simplify the implementation of the NetApps for the verticals, and still in this sense of facilitating the entire cycle in 5G YANA, there is this NetApp toolkit that somehow could simplify the implementation process and also the testing part, of course.
Okay, thank you.